How's it, Grant here? Welcome back to the channel, and I am super excited because the Xperia 1 Mark III is finally here. This is the international version. I know the US release is right around the corner, but I want to get this in that Thanos purple, so that's what this is going to be, that frosted purple back. And if you've been following my channel, you know I'm a super huge Sony fan, which is why I'm excited. I've been covering them since the XZ line on my phone, on my channel, the compact phones. I've owned them all the way back to the Z Ultra, so owned a ton of Sony phones, and I'm super happy that Xperia 1 Mark III is here. And really quick with the specs, this is retailing for $1,300 here in the US and pretty much worldwide. And that's pretty expensive, but this is the kitchen sink phone. Sony has thrown everything into this that every other flagship phone has, and then some. So I think it does warrant that $1,300 price tag. It's just a shame they're probably not going to have those carrier discounts or trade-in deals like some of the other popular manufacturers. But with the specs, you can see there on the back, it's got a Snapdragon 888, the latest processor, 12 gigs of RAM, 256 or 512 gigs of storage. This is the 512 gig version. It's got a quad camera setup, so a 12 megapixel main, 12 megapixel wide, and a 12 megapixel ultra wide, just like the previous 1 Mark II, except that it also has a time of flight sensor, but they've improved the telephoto lens. That's the big deal. That's the lens that it changed. It's got a variable telephoto lens in this thing, which basically means it's got a telephoto and a periscope zoom lens all in one, which benefits you because you have all that in one lens. So when you're zooming, especially long range, you're not going to lose the chance of having colors going off, or you'll have better real-time autofocus, all that stuff. So let's just get into the phone here. You can see it right here on top, and here's the phone. It's a pretty muted purple color. I was expecting this to be a little bit more vibrant, but it might look different, especially in sunlight, different colors, but we'll check that right there. You've got your usual nighttime reading in your paperwork, it seems, right here. And pretty much that's going to be it. You've got your quick charger and your USB Type-C cable in the box. So not a whole lot of exciting things, and that's not why you're here. You're here to really see the phone. So let's go ahead and pull it out of the sleeve here. And let's peel off the sticker here. And here it is. There is that frosted purple back. It's a very deep looking purple, so maybe not quite Thanos purple, but it is a nice frosted back, which I like. It's going to be frosted in all the colors. And if you didn't want a very vibrant purple, like here we go with the original Xperia 1. So I've got a skin on this, but you can see how purple that was. It's super purple. This was like a in-your-face purple. This is a very much more understated, muted purple, and I do love this frosted back. You can see here it's a lot different from the shiny back that they had on the 1 2. So that was that shiny glass, frosted glass. They need to frost glass all the things. So I love that look. Helps reduce on the fingerprints, and it just feels super nice and smooth. It's great to the touch. You can see the NFC logo right up in there. You see the camera system here. Let's see if we can kind of get in tighter here on the back. So you can see the NFC logo, and you can see the quad camera setup. So there is the variable telephoto lens. You can tell because it's rectangular. Most periscope zoom lenses have that rectangular kind of look to it, so it's really that telephoto and periscope zoom lens all in one. That's what's new here. I think it's the first of its kind that has that kind of variable zoom telephoto lens. And of course, there are other main and wide, ultra wide 12 megapixel cameras, along with the time of flight and the flash right there. So really, really nice looking here on the 1 Mark III. And you can see here on the bottom, you've got the Type-C port with microphone. On the side, you have the shutter button, and let's actually get in here tight again on this one. So you can see it's very texturized, so that's pretty new there. They've always had the physical camera button, shutter button, but they've added that texture there. You can see right here, you've got your fingerprint scanner, as well as your volume rocker, and you've got the signature Sony pull-out SIM card tray right there, as well as your headphone jack up top, along with the microphone. So other things this is packing, it has the same 8 megapixel front sensor. So if that's the one thing you want to say is a weakness or you want to nitpick, it's kept the same kind of weak front facing selfie camera. It's got dual front firing speakers, which is really nice. They keep that, and they say they improved that by adding their 360 reality audio for 40% louder sound is the claim there on these front firing speakers. They say they optimized that for Tidal music service, and I think there's supposed to be a free 3-month service for new Tidal members. It's got Dolby Atmos. We went through the 3.5mm headphone jack, Bluetooth 5.2 with aptX HD, and high-res LDAC codec, like Sony always does. LDAC is their codec. You've got USB Type-C on the bottom, and this USB Type-C supports video out. So you can use this by connecting it to your camera, preferably obviously your Sony Alpha camera, and use the phone as an external monitor. Or you can connect this and use it as a remote control to your camera. Or you can actually connect the camera to the phone and use that camera as a source for things like live streaming. So this is definitely going to be a creator phone, but generally a kitchen sink phone, and pretty much something that I would hope that anybody can use. It's got pretty much every feature you're going to want. 4,500 milliamp hour battery, and it's 30 watt fast charging in this thing. 50% in 30 minutes is what Sony is saying for charge time. And what's really underrated is that Sony has their focus on long-term battery health. So they have battery care feature, which basically prevents your phone from overcharging, especially if you want to charge this overnight while you sleep. It'll prevent overcharging, it'll prevent overheating. It's got that adaptive charging to monitor your phone as it charges to make sure that it does it optimally without overcharging and wearing out your battery, to make sure that it lasts as long as possible over the life of the phone. It also has fast wireless charging. They've added reverse wireless charging, so that's something that they have not had, so they've added that as well. It's IP6568 dust and water resistant. I think that's up to 1.5 meters for 30 minutes. You can submerge it underwater. And it has NFC. So pretty much, if you've got a flagship checklist of features and specs that you're looking for, this pretty much checks every box and then some, because it also has a 6.5 inch 4K display with 120 hertz refresh rate. So this display has the only 4K display with really high 120 hertz refresh rate. We're gonna power this thing on, set it up, and then we'll take a quick spin. All right, so I've gone through the basic setup process, and we'll go through the phone a little bit here. And I really like the aluminum sides this time because it really feels like aluminum this time. On the One Mark II, it had some kind of a coating on it, so it felt like more like plastic. But this one really feels really nice, really truly aluminum with those beveled edges. So I really like that. And you can go with the fingerprint scanner here. You can see what the performance is like there. Not bad, not the fastest fingerprint scanner, but it works and it's pretty reliable. And there's no face unlock, so probably maybe if you want to throw 2 stones at this thing is that it has probably a pretty weak, the same 8 megapixel selfie camera, and there's no face unlock still on the One Mark III. But you do still have your side sense. So if you double tap the side, you can see their side sense, quick access to shortcuts and launching apps. And this is basically how it comes out of the box. I didn't change the setup at all. This is the nice wallpaper to match the purple color, and your app setup here. This is everything that comes with it. They ask you during the setup if you want to install some apps, so I just selected a few of the Google apps, etc. But otherwise, pretty minimal install. Amazon was not preloaded. I asked it to install that. It's one of the apps it suggests, and so I just installed that. Facebook's on here, so LinkedIn's on there, and then there's your 3 months of Tidal. So minimal bloatware, not too bad. You can see your PlayStation app and all that stuff, so you can link to your PlayStation and play games on this, which is very awesome if you've got a PlayStation. And let's go into settings here. Oh, also before we go, it's pretty stock Android like Sony always does, so Google Discover feed to your left, which can be disabled if you want. And let's check out some of the settings here. So again, very stock Android look and feel to it. And let's check out display, because this has a 4K OLED display with 120 hertz refresh rate. So let's go see the refresh rate here, and it's not turned on by default. So let's go ahead and turn that on and check out the 120 hertz refresh rate here. And let's go ahead and check out some of the sound settings, because audio is another big deal, a part of this. They have the front-facing dual speakers with Dolby Audio 360 Reality Engine that they say is 40% louder. So let's check out the settings here. Audio settings, it does have Dolby Atmos, so we'll turn that on, and that's generally where we'll find the equalizer settings. So if we go to custom and then maybe advanced, this is where you can set your custom EQ, which is very nice. So Sony always has really nice audio settings and pretty good audio, not the best audio, but since they do have obviously an audio department, they have a lot of these types of settings here. And let's go ahead and change navigation, because you can see here it's still by default 3 button setup at the bottom. So let's go ahead here, system, gestures, and then let's go here and do system navigation. We'll change that to gesture navigation. I'm just used to the gestures at this point. And so there we go with that. So now you have full screen gestures. They're a little bit more real estate without the buttons at the bottom. And of course, out of the box, this is running Android 11. So we can see the Android 11 June security patch. And if we look here, it's got an update waiting for me straight out of the box. So I'm guessing hopefully that's the July security update. I'll go ahead and install that. But of course, it has its 4K OLED HDR at 120 hertz display panel. So of course, we can go ahead and check that thing out here. We've got this all the way up to 4K 60 HDR. So here's what that display looks like here. And let's go ahead and see the brightness level. Cranked it all the way up, and let's look at that. So 4K HDR display. You can see it's not full edge to edge here. You can see the speaker here and the speaker here. So a little bit of a notch at the top and the bottom, but very minimal. Sony's worked to really push the displays out even further to try to maximize that and give you that dual speaker system. So it's not full edge to edge, but that's because now you have no kind of nut cutout or notch for the camera, and it leaves enough room to fit in this dual speaker system, which we're going to test out in just a bit. But I really want to just show you the quality of this 4K OLED HDR display at 120 Hertz. It looks fantastic in person. All right, now let's go ahead and check out these dual front firing speakers. I've got some audio queued up, and let's go ahead and see what this sounds like. Max volume. So now let's take a look at the camera apps, because the cameras are pretty much one of the main standout features of this phone. You have a quad camera setup with triple 12 megapixel cameras, wide, ultra wide, and then the telephoto / periscope variable zoom lens there. And of course, this is actually coated with the T-Glass Zeiss coatings to help prevent any kind of anti-glare, anti-reflection. So hopefully you don't have kind of lens flares or any better improvement into some bright lighting there as well. So this year you don't have the stock camera app. They only have Photo Pro and Cinema Pro now. There's no generic stock camera app. So when you launch this, it starts out in basic mode. And so this is the former stock camera app. They've combined Photo Pro and the stock app into one. So by default, the stock app is now basic when you launch Photo Pro. And you can go here and navigate through this. You'll see that you've got things at your fingertips to control your brightness right here, as well as your white balance. You can reset that. You have one tap access to portrait mode, so you can increase or decrease the amount of background blur or bokeh there. And then you also have here to adjust single shot mode versus continuous shooting mode. And you also have access to your flash, and then of course your aspect ratio right there. So quick toggles there in the photo app by default, which is nice. You can tap that to get into your video mode, toggle on HDR. And then you can also go here and go into the menu. One thing here is if you go into video, it maxes out at 4K 30 from the basic mode. So you don't have access to 4K 60 frames per second from the basic mode. You're going to have to go into the Photo Pro side of the app to get that. That's how it was on the Xperia 1 Mark II. I'm a little bit disappointed they didn't integrate that into the basic mode here. But this is kind of what that basic mode there looks like. You have more, so access to the typical things from Sony around slow motion, portrait, panorama, and your creative effects. That looks pretty much standard carryover from before. So let's go ahead and toggle this into more of what you're going to get with the Pro side of things. So if I toggle this over into auto, it triggers off what you're familiar with with Photo Pro. If you had the Xperia 1 Mark II, this is what Photo Pro basically looked like as the separate app. And so you have access to basic settings in auto, but if you go here, you can go into your program auto, shutter priority, your manual, or memory recall, where you can set all the different settings here for manual mode for quick access to the common settings that you're going to use. So that's pretty much your Photo Pro app. You have your exposure levels and all that stuff here, quick toggles. So this is supposed to mirror more of the Sony Alpha camera experience. And so that's how you get more into that Photo Pro side and toggle back into more of what you consider a stock camera experience there. And also they have that Cinema Pro app. So this is where you're going to get that 21:9 aspect ratio film style video. And this is where you can access things like 4K 60 frames per second and all that kind of stuff. So let's go through all this. And this is what Cinema Pro looked like on the previous app as far as what I can tell. So you can do kind of like a lot of your preset looks here for color grading and all that kind of stuff. And then you can choose between what lens do you want, standard 24mm main lens. Then you've got your telephoto lens and zoom all the way to the 105mm in that same telephoto lens, but this is basically your periscope long range zoom. And then your 16mm ultra wide. So you can toggle between the different lenses there and focal lengths. And then of course you have your frames per second. So you have 4K all the way up to 120 frames per second slow motion on this if you want. So that's new as well. And then here's where you can change your overall 4K and get to 4K 60 frames per second there as well. Whole bunch of other toggles here. Full control over your audio as well. So lots of things that you can do from Cinema Pro. And this is obviously going to film in 21:9. So lots of cool things you can do with that, but that's a quick look at Cinema Pro there. And that's my unboxing and walkthrough of the Xperia 1 Mark III. Obviously, I'm going to be doing a bunch of camera comparisons on this, so let me know which phones you want to see this compared to the most. Any other questions or comments you want to leave, I'll try to answer any kind of questions I can in the comment section below. Also, let me know what other kind of things you want to see about the Xperia 1 Mark III in upcoming videos, and I'll try to accommodate what I can. But let's go ahead and keep the conversation going in the comment section. And as always, thanks for watching.